amazing day. I'm Andrea M. Stuckey, the Divorce Liberator and your favorite divorce coach. Welcome to this today's Lunch and Learn. We're going to be talking about how to cope with stress and anxiety during challenging times. So come on into the broadcast. Make sure you're sharing the broadcast out with your friends in the community. Share it out with those that you know. Come on in. Say hello as you're joining the broadcast. And in addition, as you're watching the broadcast, make sure you interact. This is an engaging type of conversation. And in addition, make sure you tap and thumbs up for those hearts and likes, right? So come on in. I'm going to tag a few people. Come on in if you can. Great. Hope everybody's doing good today. Come on in. We'll get started in just one moment. Hope that you guys are doing well this morning, actually this afternoon. We are halfway through week 7 of this COVID-19 epidemic, if you're watching this live or by replay. And so it's been a challenging time, and we want to talk about that today here on how to manage stress and anxiety, during challenging times such as this. And for those of you who are watching who are single women, single divorced women, single mothers, it can be challenging in being at home without your normal support systems that you can rely on, right? Real talk. So let's talk about those things on today. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, I'm Andrea M. Stuckey, the Divorce Liberator and your favorite divorce coach. Today, I will be sharing with you how to cope with stress and anxiety in very challenging times, right? In very, very challenging times. And we know that these times can be challenging. And actually there are seasons in life that will, I was going to say can be, but that will be more challenging than others. So as you're coming on to the broadcast live, say hello, let me know that you're here, and thumbs and heart the broadcast up. I'd appreciate that. So let's just jump on into it. I always start with a quote or scripture, and I have both for you on today. And the first is a scripture from Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 7, and it says this, I know it, I have it in the pit of my soul: be anxious for nothing, but with all things, through prayer and supplication, make your request be known to the Lord. Right? Be anxious for nothing. So as a Christian, as a believer, the Word of God tells us that we don't need to be anxious, right? And it can be tough at times, right? But that's the Word of God. Be anxious for nothing. And then in addition, the quote that I have for you today says this: it is not our stress that kills us. It is our reaction to it. Let me say it again. It's not the stress that kills us. It is our reaction to it. And that quote is by Hans Selye, S-E-L-Y-E, right? So here's the thing. Before I even jump into the things that I want to share with you today, I want to give this disclaimer. So if you are live, type in the chat in the comment section, disclaimer. Andrea is giving a disclaimer because we're talking about stress and anxiety. Disclaimer number 1 is I am not a therapist, right? I am not a therapist, and I am not talking about, when I talk about stress and anxiety, I am not talking about chronic stress or chronic anxiety disorders, right? That is an area that is handled and managed with professionals in the healthcare field, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, and medical doctors, right? So let me just put that disclaimer out here. This is general information just to kind of help refamiliarize yourself or familiarize yourself with what stress and anxiety is and how in situations, right, we can best manage ourselves, right? Because there is situational stress, there is situational anxiety because they're based on situations. But we also know that there's chronic stress, there's chronic depression, right? There's chronic anxiety disorders. And I'm going to talk about that on today, not talk in depth, but kind of list those things. And that is the difference. I want to be very, very clear before I jump on here that I am not a therapist. I am not a medical doctor. I am a certified life coach, and we're going to talk about it from that perspective, right? Situational stress and situational anxiety. Okay? How to cope with stress and anxiety during challenging times. Many of you who are watching in this community are separated and or divorced women. Many of you are single parents, as I am, right? And this is week 7 of this COVID pandemic. And many of you are working from home. You're teaching from home. We talked about that yesterday. If you missed that live stream, make sure you go back and double check it. And you don't have your necessary support systems that you may have as a single parent, even as a woman going through a divorce, right? There's different support systems that you may have been reaching out or they've been reaching out to you to help you. Maybe you had a local support group that you were going to weekly. Maybe you had your kids in daycare part of the day, or you had maybe you're co-parenting, and maybe that type of co-parenting has changed during this time. We all have different situations and circumstances, and when we begin to go through these various types of change, it can cause stress and or anxiety. Okay, so let's take a look at what stress and anxiety are, because they are not the same. And sometimes it's very difficult for us to understand what's happening in our mind, our body, and our spirit. And if we don't have a clear understanding, then how can we address that issue if we don't know what it is? I talk to my clients about this all the time, that being able to identify your emotions is clear. And for many of us, we didn't grow up being able to communicate how we feel. So it may be very difficult for us to explain our anger, right? Because anger can lead to or stem from disappointment, resentment, rejection, despair, right? So there's a mirage of feelings. And I think it's important that we use language and that we understand the language that we're using and that we use it appropriately. Does that make sense? Because stress and anxiety are two different things. Now, they may coincide. One may cause the other and vice versa, but they are technically two very different things, right? So if you are live on the broadcast, let me know. I see some people in the room. Let me know that you're here. Also send a couple of hearts up, tap the screen, tap the little thumbs up, whatever that is for you on the other side of the screen, right? So let's look at stress, right? Stress is usually caused from external factors, right? Stress is usually caused from external factors, right? So for definition purposes, let's look at what stress technically is, right? And we're talking about from an emotional perspective, right? And well-being. Stress is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from very demanding circumstances. Let me say this again. A state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from very demanding circumstances, right? Very demanding circumstances. So what are some of those top causes of stress, right? Some of the top causes of stress are loss of a loved one, loss of a job. How many know that during this COVID situation, many people have lost their jobs, have been laid off, right? Have been transitioned in some way, shape, or form. And that causes a lot of tension. That causes a lot of stress. Divorce is one of the top causes of stress. It is very, very emotionally demanding and very, very emotionally draining going through a divorce. It's one of the top causes of stress. And fourth, there are other ones, but here are some of the top ones. Chronic illness. Being diagnosed with a chronic illness, cancer, lupus, an autoimmune disease where there's no particular cure, that can be very stressful on an individual, right? So we're talking about, when we talk about stress, think of strain or tension, and it's usually caused from external factors, right? Even though chronic illness is an internal function, but like that news of understanding that you have a chronic illness. Does that make sense? Now let's look at anxiety. Anxiety is generally, hey Jasmine, great to see you. Anxiety is generally caused internally, right? It's an internal emotion or feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease. So remember, Stress, the feeling of stress, is usually an external impetus, whereas anxiety is sort of an internal impetus, right? We begin to feel anxious, worry, nervousness, or very uneasy feeling. Hey, Chantel, great to see you here today, right? Two very different, similar, but different etiologies, right? Different causes, okay? Now, what are some things that can cause you to feel worry, nervousness, uneasiness, right? Change is one thing. I don't even have that on my list, but just popped right into my mind, right? Change of the unfamiliar can cause us to be nervous, worry, when we don't know what to expect, right? Work stress, right? So having stress, right, the demands of work, which we talked about, can then lead to you feeling nervous all the time, right? Uneasy all of the time. Does that make sense? The internal feeling versus the external factor that causes it, right? Stress from your children. Children can cause you to be anxious. You worry about them. Any of you have adult children or children who are transitioning into adulthood and they're making those transitions, it can cause you to feel a little uneasy. When you have young children, right? And you know that I love to talk about, I call them the littles from age like 1 to 5, and then you're finally sending them off to school or into daycare. You may be concerned or worried how they're going to manage themselves, right? That's an anxiety in a sense that you're a little uneasy and nervous. Thank you so much. Great to see you, Teresa. Good morning to you, right? Do you know medications? Side effects of some medications can cause you anxiety. So if you suffer from anxiety, or if you're feeling yourself in this season being a little more anxious than normal, not for those of you who are chronically anxious and you see a physician for that. That's not what I'm talking about. I want to make sure that I'm going to talk about that all the time through here to give my disclaimer. But you may want to check if you're on any regular medications, what the side effects of those medications are. And that could be one, right? So you definitely want to check that. Some of those are, I thought I listed some. One second. I thought I listed some. But I know birth control pills are one. Weight loss medications are another. And sometimes different cold medications can cause you to feel anxious. They can rev up your system or your blood pressure that can cause you to feel anxious that you're not used to. Right? So when you're feeling anxiety and you really can't pinpoint, think about some of the causes that can some of the things or items that can cause you to be feeling anxious. Another thing is caffeine. So for those of you who are caffeine drinkers, I am definitely. Caffeine in coffee, tea, or some sodas, or anything that has caffeine, if you find yourself feeling anxious, feeling nervous, feeling uneasy, take a look at your caffeine intake. Right? So sometimes we can be having these feelings, but really not sure where they're coming from. So this is a great baseline. Hey, Suzette, great to see you. This is a great baseline to kind of check, hey, let me look at these things first, right? Am I on medications? Are there side effects? Am I, is it work? Is it children, right? That's causing me uneasy. Is it a major change, right? So being here in the Divorced Women Unite community, those of you who are going through a divorce or who have been through a divorce, you know that change, that apprehension of what is to come, that uneasiness or unsureness can make you feel anxious. I've been there, right? I've been there. And so it's very valid, right? It is very valid. So let's look at some of the symptoms or things that you can be seeing in your life if you are going through stress and anxiety. So if you're just joining the broadcast, welcome. I've already given my disclaimer. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a medical doctor. We're not talking about chronic conditions. We're talking about situational stress and situational anxiety, right? Stress is generally has an external impetus, an external cause. Anxiety usually has an internal cause, right? I've already talked about some of the causes. So let's look at how it manifests, right? Or how it may manifest in your life during this season, right? You're feeling stress, you're feeling anxiety, or you're really not sure what you're feeling. So let's take a look at how some of those things can be manifesting in your life during this season, right? And so the first thing we talk about stress, sometimes sleep loss, right? You're unable to sleep, especially if you normally sleep well and all of a sudden you find yourself waking up during the middle of the night. Your thoughts are racing, your concerns or the things that you're concerned about are running across your mind during the middle of the night. That's how stress can begin to manifest, right? It can also manifest in our behaviors, overeating or not eating enough, right? Nail biting, right? A lot of people, when they're going through stress, they may be biting their nails and things like that. And it can be different. We all handle stress very differently and how it manifests in our life. And I'll tell you, one of the things that happens to me, which I'm like this anyway, but I think it kind of goes to another level, is I like to organize. So a lot of times if I'm feeling stress, it may manifest in me literally doing things that I don't normally do. Not in a bad way, right? But I may be, cleaning out kitchen cabinets. I may be, a little extra than normal. Does that make sense? So you have to begin to know yourself and be able to identify it. Now, that in itself is a healthy way, right? As long as I'm dealing with my feelings, whatever, and I'm acknowledging my stress, that is not harmful. Does that make sense? So that's not harmful like, overeating or not eating or drinking or, using things that in a negative way to try and soothe that stressful feeling. Does that make sense? So if you guys are here, I'd love to hear your commentary. Say yes, no, engage if you have a question, and also tap and thumbs up for me. Okay, so let's shift over to anxiety. I hope you guys are following, and let me know if this kind of ping pong if you're able to keep up with it. So when we think about anxiety, some of the ways that can manifest is this. The difference is anxiety is usually sudden, right? Usually all of a sudden you start to feel physiological changes, right? So your heart rate may increase. You may have sudden chest pain. You may break out in sweaty palms or sweating, right? You may even feel faint or nauseous, right? So do you see how those symptoms or manifestations rather can be very different? So I want you to try to identify if you're having a challenge with your emotions right now. Let's identify if it's stress, an external factor, or if it's anxiety, which is an internal factor where you feel yourself feeling that uneasiness, that nervousness, chest palpitations, or increase in your blood pressure, right? Or your heart rates, right? So let's take a look at those things so that you can identify it, right? Because we can't identify it, we can't address it. So as I said earlier, even with our feelings and emotions, if we can't identify it properly, then it's going to be very difficult for us to learn how to heal that pain, right? Or manage that particular emotion. So, our words, communication, and understanding is very, very important. Hey, Shantae, great to see you this morning, afternoon, or depending on where you are in the world, right? Right. Okay. So another, I think I overlooked some. I didn't put here, when we talked about some of the causes of stress and anxiety, I think I missed the financial piece, right? And I want to make sure I include that because this is a season where people are having financial challenges, right? That can cause stress, right? Job loss, right? Or it can cause anxiety, right? Not knowing what's next, right? See the difference, the external versus the internal, right? The anxiety of not knowing what's next, the uneasiness, okay? So those are the ways stress and anxiety can manifest if you're having those symptoms or seeing those things in your life right now, right? Now, we must learn to manage our stress and manage our anxiety, because left unchecked or untreated, so to speak. And when I mean treatment, I don't necessarily mean treatment by a doctor unless it goes on for a prolonged period of time, right? Because we're talking about situations, right? Situations that spur these type of feelings and these type of emotions and these type of behaviors, right? So when we talk about stress, it's very important that we learn to manage our stress. Stress is something that happens in life all the time. And there's actually good stress and negative stress, right? It's how we manage that stress, actually, right? So when you're raising young families, you're starting a new job, you're taking on a new career, there's a ton of things that can cause additional stress in your life, but you have to learn how to manage it. And when we don't learn how to manage it, then we can cause chronic illness in our lives, right? High blood pressure, disease. Because here's the reality: when we undergo stress, we release a hormone called cortisol. And that cortisol can attack different areas and organs of our lives, of our bodies, right? And cause physical, hear me, physical illness. You can do your own research. This is a fact, right? So that's why it's important to manage our stress. And for you single women going through a divorce during this challenging time, you got to, I say it all the time, you got to take care of yourself. It's that important, because what happens is we can't take care of anybody else until we take care of ourselves. And if we're not in a healthy position, think about it. Stress can cause physical ailments, which, what did I say in the beginning? Some of the causes of stress are physical ailments, chronic illness. You see how that cycle can happen? You're under stress. It can cause chronic illness, but the chronic illness itself can cause more stress from medications, right? We talked about that. Side effects of medications, costs, treatments for, cancer and different things like that. So it can be a cycle, stress, causing stress, causing stress. Does that make sense? All right, I want to hear from you guys. I'm going to keep going, but are you there? Yes, somebody say yes. Somebody hit a thumbs up. Can I see a floating heart or floating thumbs up to let me know that you're listening, that this is resonating with you? I see you live on the broadcast. And I believe there is a little delay from me to you. That usually happens here. Thank you so much. Good. So left untreated, we can get, can cause physical ailments, high blood pressure, heart disease, and depression. Hey, Anita. Great to see you, beautiful. Okay, Suzette, thank you. Thank you for commenting. Right? Left untreated, it can be detrimental to our physical health. So let's look at anxiety. We talked about the chest pain, rapid breathing, sweating, feeling faint. The challenge with untreated anxiety is that it can really progress into chronic anxiety, which can be debilitating, right? Meaning that you can't function, right? So some of the chronic disorders that come with some of the chronic anxiety disorders are OCD. Let me just read them here that I wrote. General anxiety disorder. So what happens is you're having those panic attacks. You're having those things more than just stressful situations. They're coming upon you more, right? Obsessive compulsive disorder. We talked about that. Sometimes it can manifest in very different ways. It can be from a germ perspective, constantly washing your body. There could be phobias and fears of going out, but these can all be sort of manifested by unchecked anxiety, or chemical disorders, chemical imbalances is a better word, physiologically, which I am not a trained therapist. I'm going to say this all the time. I am not a trained therapist, nor am I a medical doctor. So I'm just mentioning these chronic conditions, but what I'm referring to here today is situational stress and situational anxiety. And so if left unchecked, perhaps they can go into chronic anxiety disorders such as general anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, panic disorder, PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome disease, right? And then also social anxieties, right? A lot of times people may have challenges being out in public, speaking in public, or just getting around other people with a real anxiety manifestation and a real uneasiness in those particular situations. So you may say, Andrea, well, what do we do right now? I'm in this stressful situation. I'm feeling anxiety. How can I manage this? Right? How can I manage this? So let me, my anxiety caused me to have heart palpitations back in February. Yes, Suzette, thank you for sharing that. Yes, because those internal thoughts, right? Concerns, challenging, uneasiness manifest physically. Right? And you guys hear me talk about this here all the time. Every emotion is preceded by a thought. Right? So let me use an example that I use a lot with some of my clients. If you follow me really closely, you've heard it before. But I like to use this example. I love dogs, but I don't like dogs that I don't know. Okay? So, for example, the stereotypical pit bull, if I don't know that dog, then I'm not going anywhere near that dog. Right? I'm not going anywhere near that dog. So, I have a fear or apprehension of that dog. Right? My thought of, hey, that dog can possibly bite me. So now I'm feeling fear, right? So the thought first, because of that type of dog, right? Their reputation generally for pit bulls is a thought that causes me to be afraid to move forward or walk past that dog or whatever. Now, this is literally a situation we had, my daughter and I. We had an old neighbor who had a pit bull, right? Or actually the pit bulls got loose. And so my daughter walks right out to the car in the driveway. She's not afraid because, first of all, her thought is she doesn't feel that pit bull is threatening. Therefore, there's no negative emotion for her. But because my thought is that it's threatening, my emotion is negative. Let me know if that makes sense to you. This thought process can be with anything that we encounter, right? Anything that we encounter. Remember, the quote that I gave at the beginning of the broadcast said this: it is not our stress that kills us, it is our reaction to it. Right? So that my reaction to coming in contact with a pit bull can make me in a tizzy. Right? It doesn't mean that the pit bull is attacking me. He could just be like 5 feet away. But I can ramp myself up of what I think could potentially happen with that pit bull. I hope that makes sense to you, right? So my whole point in using that example is how important our thoughts are, right? In managing our thoughts, and I'm not even getting to my list in management yet, but thoughts are very, very important. I'm going to say it again. I said it yesterday, especially during this time right now. We are bombarded with negativity. We are bombarded with things that we cannot control, right? We are bombarded with things that we can control, right? But you have to know yourself, right? You have to know yourself. I watched the program last night, a series I was binge watching, and I fell asleep on that. And do you know what was in my mind this morning when I woke up? That series. So that's just a small example of what we put in our mind is important. So what are you feeding your thoughts? Make sure that every day you're putting positivity, uplifting messaging, reading encouraging books, reading the Word of God, going to YouTube and listening to things that are positive. Go to a YouTube that shows vacation spots, whatever that is for you, but to take yourself out of the negativity. Okay. So let me tell you about 4 ways that I have here that are important to managing stress and anxiety, especially as a single divorced woman who is rebuilding their life, right? There are seasons of different stressors that come along the journey, right? Your first 6 months of separation is one level of stress and challenge and transition. The second 6 months to maybe a year following is another transition, right? And then the subsequent years, you may be managing all things pretty good, but now you're in another level when you start talking about dating, relationships, right? Rebuilding your life, right? Redefining who you are. There's different levels to this journey. And with every level comes new information, new change, which can cause stress or a little anxiety, right? So let's talk about how we can manage this. You guys know I'm a big proponent of exercise. I'm a huge proponent because it works. Right? Not just because what I read, you can do your own research. It's actual physiologically sound, because when you increase your heart rate and you exercise in some way, it doesn't matter what you do, you release endorphins, which are like hormones, not hormones, but you release endorphins in your brain that give you a euphoric, good feeling. So it takes you out of that negativity, at least for a season, at least for a moment. And usually there's a fulfilling, it lasts for quite a while after, right? But you've got to ramp up your heart rate. Does that make sense? You guys rocking with me? Exercise, right? You've got to ramp it up in order for those endorphins to flow. Now, a lot of times people are doing things, but they're not really ramping up their system, if that makes sense. You're not getting enough energy going, or you're not walking at a brisk enough pace to increase your heart rate, to release those endorphins in your brain. That is scientific fact. And so I will challenge you today, if you have not been getting, walking doesn't cost or take anything, right? If you're not in an area, I know sometimes in cities and things, you may not have the right area that you feel comfortable walking in. Drive to a parking lot. Right now, all these lots are open. Drive your car, get out, get your phone in your hand, put your sneakers on, and walk. Put some music maybe in one ear, depending on the area that you're in. You always want to be able to hear, right? Safety first, right? Walking or running. And, put some music on. Get that heart rate going. You are going to feel so much better. This is one of the ways that I manage my stress going through my divorce, right? And actually how I manage stress even now, because my plate is full. Mom, running a business, all these different things that I do, right? You have to have a way to manage. And so even in these challenging times when things are rapidly changing, we have to be looking and asking ourselves, how am I managing this? What am I doing to combat these feelings, right? Suzette says, yep, exercise keeps me off the ledge. Yes, and it can be just as simple as walking, but you have to kind of get going, right? It can just be a leisurely, meditative walk. When we're talking about releasing endorphins, you've got to kind of ramp up your cardiovascular system. Does that make sense? That is huge. Number 2, meditation. Prayer and meditation. Now, this can be tricky, especially as believers, because meditation is means different things to different people. Okay, so let me talk about my experience with meditation, and I have some suggestions for you, right? So if you're concerned about anything being spooky about meditation, right? Meditation really is just about clearing your mind, right? Clearing your mind, focusing on your breathing, and relaxing. That's really what it's about. And a lot of time we don't sit still enough to just clear our mind, right? And there's different ways to do that. Meditation is a huge subject and topic. But one of the apps that I have found, and I've been sharing with some people from a Christian perspective, because I'm going to tell you, me personally, I'm always checking and monitoring what is going into my eyes, ears, and mouth, right? And nose, right? Through my senses. And so I want to make sure that what I'm listening to, and I don't mean like I listen to all Christian music. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying I want to be mindful of what I'm putting into my mind, right? And so Soothe is a Christian app, and you can download it. It's free. It has a free and a paid version, but it talks to you through scriptures. Has a little calming music in the back. It is an excellent app, in my opinion, right? So I'd like to recommend that. If you have not tried meditation, from a Christian perspective, if that's something you're concerned about, if it sounds spooky to you, I'd recommend the Soothe app, the free version. Download it and just listen to it. It gives you ask you a few questions about like where you are, what you're concerned about, and it will read scriptures to you. It will give you some insight. I like it. It's very I find it helpful, guided meditation from a Christian perspective, right? So I just thought I'd throw that out. But meditation is another way to clear your mind and to relax, right? And so sometimes we just have to breathe, right? We just have to take a moment, quiet ourselves, and breathe. Oftentimes during the day, being busy mothers, single women, whatever you're doing, whatever you're involved in, we go. And we've got to learn to give ourselves some space and a few minutes to relax, mentally and physically. Point number 3, we're talking about managing your stress and your anxiety. Changing your diet, right? Many of us have changed our diet in the past 7 weeks, right? So as a vegetarian, I'm a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian for 4 years, 23 years, right? But here's the thing: when you're in-house, I am a snacker. So when I'm working here in the office, I like to snack, but I'm not getting the exertion that I normally get going to the gym, right? And also, I'm craving things that I don't normally crave: chocolates, salts. Now, I like those things in general, but I feel like I'm craving them more. So you have to be very mindful, because our diets create different reactions in our body, right? So even when we talk about, like I said earlier, caffeine, alcohol, right? These things can increase stress and anxiety if you have those external factors of stress, and if you have those internal challenges or apprehensions that are causing you anxiety. You really want to begin to look at what you're eating and what you're drinking. Does that make sense? Right? So you just got to take a little inventory, because some of these things you can immediately change and get immediate results within 24 to 48 hours. But you have to be intentional about the change, right? And you've got to do trial and error. So you got to monitor yourself. What have I been listening to? I did spend an hour listening to the news report, or I talked to one of my girlfriends, and we talked an hour about people dying, whatever it is, right? You got to really check yourself to see the things that can be helping increase this level of situational stress and situational anxiety. Okay? And then fourth and finally, there are other ways, but I think that these, especially in my own personal experience, so I can vouch for them because I've done them or have not done them, and the results that come with them, is getting more sleep, quality sleep. So as I said earlier, if you know that normally you sleep 7 hours and you normally sleep straight through, right? And all of a sudden now you're waking up at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, then you may want to take a look at your diet, number one, and start implementing some of these other things to decrease your stress and anxiety, right? Hey, Gloria, great to see you. Now, this is an area that I'm challenged with, right? My body just doesn't sleep for long periods of time, right? 6 hours. It's kind of usually 5 to 6 hours. My body wakes up with or without caffeine, with or without, exercising. And so I'm always concerned that, always concerned if I'm getting enough sleep. So one of the ways I combat that, for those of you who really know me, that I generally take a nap every single day or close to it. And if I don't take a nap, I will just relax for 30 minutes. Like literally get on the sofa or lay on my bed to kind of just shift my day into different sort of segments, if you will. And hopefully that will kind of, I'm hoping that kind of helps from the sleep deprivation, if you will. But when I talked to my doctor, I went to a doctor about a month ago. My doctor had my physical, everything's fine. I have no challenges physically. So I think you just have to monitor and recognize for yourself, knowing that if you sleep 5 hours only, but you've been sleeping 8 hours, that there's something going on. Does that make sense? Right, so managing exercise, meditation, checking and changing your diet, and getting more sleep, right? Or more quality sleep, or addressing your sleep needs. Now, there are a ton of things I don't really like to suggest, but some of the things we talked about in an accountability group that I am in, we talked about sleep. There are some things that can help you with your sleep. So I'll suggest them because they were suggested to me. If you have a problem sleeping, I know that a weighted blanket or something heavy on you can help you sleep. There's also magnesium, they say, and do your own research. I'm just going to throw these out here, okay? That magnesium helps you sleep better as well. Melatonin is sort of a natural way to help you with sleep. You get a lot of controversy about those things. I thought there was one more I wanted to share. Because I'm personally not big on sleep aids, right? Prescription sleep aids. I don't even like really taking medicine, to be honest with you. So, but I just throw those things out. So if you're having any sleep challenges, right, once you do those things, also just do your own personal research in terms of the weighted blanket, magnesium to your diet, and melatonin and the different levels of melatonin that may help you just a little bit, okay? So this has been great. I hope that something that I've said has brought clarity to you in terms of stress and anxiety Let me rephrase: situational stress and situational anxiety during challenging times such as this. Let me just do a quick commercial break. If you have not registered for the Rebuilding the Inner Me group coaching program, we'll be starting that on Monday, May 4th, and I am so excited about it. It is one of my most popular programs, group coaching programs, and we have created 2 payment plans. So you can go to bit.ly/Rebuilding the Inner Me, all lowercase, all one word, for all of the necessary details and information. I'd love to see you there, involved, getting to meet other women who are going through the same challenges that you're having during this divorce journey, during divorce, after divorce journey. Believe it or not, working remotely has been busy and stressful at times. I sleep hard, but at times wake up at 4 or 5. Yeah. And so, Gloria, what's interesting is if that's not your normal behavior, your normal sleep pattern, then you probably want to address it and start looking at, as I said, your diet, right? Are you able to get out during the day to exercise in some way, even if it's just an upbeat walk, right? Even if it's just getting out on nature, like today is a beautiful day. I cannot wait to get out. Right? Take a ride. I have a couple errands to run. I need to pick up some fruit, right? So I'm excited about getting out there. And hopefully, I live close to a park. And so I keep my tennis shoes in the car, and I'll go to the park or to the lot. We have different sides of the park, and just lap it and get my mile or 2 miles in, put my earbuds in, listen to something, and, get my energy flowing up. So you may want to look at those things and kind of monitor yourself, and hopefully you can kind of find out if it's the stress of work, right? And then you want to manage that stress, right? Because these are stressful times, right? So managing it may look like downtime, doing something you love during the day, getting that exercise, right? Definitely checking your diet, what you're putting in, right? Looking at your medications. We talked about that too, that some medications have side effects, right? So if you've introduced anything new into your life lately, this is anybody who's watching or watching by replay, make sure you check that. You may think it's situational, but it may be a side effect of a new medication or something that you've introduced into your body, so to speak, over the past couple of months or so. Okay? Anybody have any other questions, comments, or concerns? You guys rock. You guys rock. Listen, we are almost at the finish line. God has not forgotten you. He has not forgotten you, right? It doesn't matter what it looks like. God can change a situation just like that. Never underestimate the power of God, right? Just let your request be made known to him, right? It's just like your children, right? We can't read their minds. If they have a need, or even a friend, if they have a need or a challenge, we can't help them if we don't know. Now, we know God is different than man, right? He's all-knowing. But like any good parent, he wants us to come to him, right? So let your request be made known to God in this season. And look and expect. Great. Look, expect, and be open to receive whatever God has for you, right? And there's a lot of things that we just don't understand today. And that is where the faith must kick in. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. If we could see, if we knew the outcome, baby, it's not faith, right? But one of the things I know that God, ice cream, Gloria, I'm sorry, but I'm going to get back to that ice cream in a minute. But one of the things that I love about God, right, is that God will show us things progressively, right? Progressive revelation. Right? But a lot of times we have to take the first step in order for the second step to be revealed. And a lot of times we're not even taking the first step, the first action, the first change, right? To begin to see anything come forward from it because of fear, because of apprehension, because of stress, because of anxiety. We got to learn to step out of the boat, right? We got to learn to step out. Really, literally on faith for any change that you want in your life in this season, new career, new job, whatever that is for you, right? This life is a faith walk. This life is a faith journey. And listen, this divorce journey requires a whole lot of faith. But God, and God is a restorative God, right? When you stay hooked up and tied with him, he can restore every single thing that's taken away from you. He can. He can do it. So I want you to stay encouraged today, right? manage that stress, manage that anxiety. Take a really good look at yourself today in the mirror, so to speak. Not literally, right? But figuratively. And start thinking about, hey, what am I doing every single day? I'm at home, working or not working, teaching the children or not teaching the children. What is my day looking like? What am I putting in my ear, my eyes, right? What am I eating? What is my diet looking like, right? And where can I make some shifts to see if these will make me feel better? Absolutely. And so to your comment about the ice cream challenge is real, right? It is absolutely real. It is one of my weaknesses. And that's all I'm going to say. But I love, your girls love some ice cream. I cannot wait until the real ice cream shops open up so I can get my coconut ice cream. I'm a fan of coconut. That's another story. So thank you so much for joining, engaging in the conversation. Listen, share this broadcast out. Sometimes people just need a little insight, a little information to help make small switches that can just change your results. Just like that, right? So I encourage, make sure you're following me on all platforms of social media at @yours_coach7. If you want a free complimentary consultation with me, get on my calendar immediately. bit.ly/divorce liberator, all lowercase, all one word. It'll take you right to my calendar. I would love to talk to you. I would love to talk to you. So listen, stay encouraged, keep your head up. We're almost at the finish line. Things are changing rapidly, but listen, right now, just take it one day at a time. That's what I do, literally. One day at a time. Right? I focus on the things that I can change, and I do not focus on what I cannot change. Those things I leave up to God. Okay? So stay encouraged. And listen, remember, as I always tell you, no matter what the situation or the circumstance is that you're facing on today, it doesn't matter what it is during this COVID-19 situation. God is always with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Stay and be encouraged, and I will see you.